What's going on, guys? Jeff here, Mad Hatter's Reef. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Innovative Marine 15-gallon all-in-one, and we're going to check to see if this baby is cycled. So let's jump into it. Alright, so I set this tank up, I thought it was a month ago, but it's not. It actually is almost 2 months ago that I set this tank up. So in most situations when you are just first setting up the tank, it's going to take about a month to 6 weeks for a tank to go through the nitrogen cycle, which if you're unfamiliar with that and you're like in the mega beginning stages, that's definitely something that you're going to want to do some research on. Quite often, being here at the store, folks come in, I got to kind of pump the brakes on them sometimes because they set a tank up 3 days later, you know, they're trying to put fish in there, so you know it's not responsible, and you want to make sure that the tank is cycled. It is possible to cycle a tank incredibly fast, and I have done it with, I believe it was the 13.5, which we have set up over here. And there's videos here on the channel, you can find that, but it's already almost been 2 months since this tank was initially set up. So the idea that it is not cycled is very much not a thing. And there's visual cues that can kind of pop up that, you know, is a good indication that the tank is cycled, but it does not replace testing the tank. So the three things that you want to pay attention to when you are setting up a tank and you're waiting to see that it has in fact cycled is ammonia. Ammonia is incredibly important. If ammonia is present, the tank is not cycled. NO2. NO2, if it's present, the tank is not cycled. If you have zero ammonia, zero NO2, and some measurable amount of NO3, the tank is now cycled and it is safe to put invertebrates and fish in there. But we're going to grab a test strip, see if we got any measurable NO2 present, and then we're going to break out the Hannah and check the NO3 and see if this tank is ready to go to add some stuff in there. And then also we're going to talk about the visual cue, which we've already mentioned a couple times, but we're going to combat that with something else to make sure that we're not going straight into the ugly stage, which can happen when you're using dry rock to set up your tank. So all that is going on today. So let's start doing some testing and see where we're at. All right, so we got the Hannah NO3, little paper towel there, and then we got the API 501 test strips. Say what you will, but in the event of doing some quick testing, this is usually what I will use to see what is going on in the tank. Years ago, I would have told you that this is garbage, don't use it. But I have found, especially doing aquarium service, that there are circumstances where this can actually be incredibly beneficial, even with saltwater aquariums. Your Hannah tester, the high range for the NO3 is only going to go as high as 75 parts per million. And there are situations where something can happen in a reef tank, and then you get the blinking 75. And you know that something obviously is wrong in the tank and you need to correct that, but you don't know if you're making any progress if you just are relying on the Hannah, which is just going to blink over 75. Your API dipstick tester can go all the way up to 200 parts per million. Not that you ever would want your reef tank to be at 200 parts per million, but in the event that it had some situation, you know, a potential crash happening, this is going to let you know what's going on, and it's also going to let you know your NO2. It doesn't test for ammonia, but for what I usually do with that, I've kind of gotten away from the good old-fashioned tritation ammonia testers or test kits, and have started using the ammonia badges a little bit more frequently in those circumstances. A lot of times I won't put it in an all-in-one, but I will put one in a sump situation. So really quickly, we're going to see if there's any NO2 present in the tank, which is going to be an indication that the tank is not actually cycled. So we got our little handy dandy test strip. All right, we're just going to go after it. I usually do 1, 2, and 3 right into the tank. And then we're going to give that about 30 seconds to develop. I usually put the strip on the cap, and then it's going to take a little bit of time for that the colors to develop for the NO2 and the NO3. The other ones are pretty immediate, but for what we're doing here, in my opinion, they don't necessarily apply. So we'll move that off to the side, and now let's move on to the nitrate high range Hannah tester. One thing that I like to do quite a bit is I will rinse the cuvette with the tank water, just to make sure that there isn't any residue left in there behind from my last test, because these get moved from tank to tank. Some folks, they put RODI water in here. That also can help with keeping the cuvette clean, but they also sell these separately. So eventually your 10 mil line will kind of wear off, especially if you're like me and you kind of are constantly wiping it with paper towel. Another thing I like to do with the paper towel is I basically will use it to handle the cuvette so that I'm not putting my paw prints on the glass, because this will read the color change in the cuvette. So if you got paw prints, it might give you a misread. We're going to put the 10 mils in there. Close now. Turn on the checker, clean off the paw prints. So right now it's asking for C1. Hit the button. Now it's already asking for C2. I'm gonna grab a pair of scissors real quick. So one thing that came up with a customer just recently is the way in which I open these packets. So this is your cut line right here. And I like to try to get as much of that powder off from the cut line as I possibly can. Try to get it all into this side of the packet. There's a good chance that, you know, you cut it and there's going to be like a little poof that happens, but I really try to eliminate that to the best of my ability. And we take our scissors, go to the cut line. Alright. Then what I like to do is open it up. See? And then kind of turn it into like a little cup. And I put a little bit of a fold in there, so that gives me a trail to get that powder to go into the cuvette. Get all the powder out. Cap it, and then we're going to shake it real good here. I'm going to touch it, but I'll go back and wipe it. Powder is pretty mixed up pretty well there. Paw prints are wiped off. Then on the high range nitrate, what we do is when it's asking for C2, we put the powder in and we press and hold until the timer starts. And we let go, and we wait 7 minutes for that to give us our reading. And the reason that it does the countdown on this is because it takes time for the color to develop, just the same as it does with the API dipstick. So we're going to give that a little bit of time, see what we come up with for a number. While we're waiting, we'll talk about this real quick. So there is no NO2 present, and that's really what I'm looking for here with the dipstick. There's nothing happening. It's also showing no NO3 as well. At least we know that there's no NO2. There might be no NO3 present. At the very least, no NO2, so that's a good sign there. This is going to be a little bit more diligent in giving us a readout. That takes the human eye out of it, and you're not like looking for, you know, these color ranges, which disadvantage in that circumstance. But also like with the reagent test kits that are available, where you're mixing the water and you're having colors and then trying to match it up here. If you're in different lighting every time, you know, there's a lot of different things that can contribute to misreads, which is why I really like the Hannah checkers. It takes a human eye out of it, and it's no longer an issue. So we'll give that a little bit of time to develop, and then we'll see what we got. All right, so with that, the Hannah checker high range nitrate is showing 2.1, and where the test strip showed us 0 nitrate, or sorry, 0 NO2, and we have 2.1 on the NO3, even though that the test strip wasn't showing any NO3. That's a disadvantage on them, but with the Hannah checker, it's actually giving us a number that we can actually see. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this tank is officially cycled, but we'll talk about one more visual cue as to a indication that the tank is cycled here in a second. But the word of caution, I guess, if you are in the beginning stages of getting into this hobby, I would be very hesitant to just be like, there's no NO2, I have NO3, my tank's cycled, let's go. I definitely would want to check with the ammonia, make sure that there's no ammonia present. I've been doing this for a long time. The tank's been up for almost 2 months. We have no NO2 and we have measurable NO3. I'm gonna say the tank is cycled. Now, as far as the visual cue that you can see in a tank, especially if you have lighting on there, which we did the lighting video earlier this week. This is literally just days later. We're starting to see the development of diatoms on the sand bed and rock. And that is the beginning stages of what is called the ugly stage. So that's pretty awesome that we got the tank fully cycled. We got diatoms. It's time to add some pods to the tank. Next up, adding saltwater fish. Let's go.